Hello and welcome to today's web seminar. Today we'll be discussing, is your insurance agency website current and secure? This web seminar is brought to you by Startup Selling and will feature two speakers today. Alan Bloom, who is an author and the founder and CEO of Startup Selling. The two books he has written are Sell More and Work Less and Your Virtual Success. He was twice named to the prestigious Inc. 500 list, actually in 2 consecutive years. He's written over 100 insurance marketing articles and is widely considered an insurance agency website expert. My name is John Scranton. I'm an agency marketing expert and was previously a licensed agent for a top 100 agency, like many of you. Co-wrote Sell More and Work Less. I've published over 1,000 insurance marketing blogs. And with that, we'll jump right in. So first, I'm going to talk briefly about how we determine and how you can determine if your website is current. And then Alan's going to talk to us about how to determine and ensure that your website is secure. We visit insurance agency websites on a daily basis. Our clients, prospects, suspects, people coming to us for advice or assistance. And the things that we look at to determine if a website is secure are both visual on the front end, and if they provide us access on the back end. On the front end, the first thing that we look at is the content on the website. We want to determine if that content is 1, up to date, 2, if it's optimized for search, and 3, does it speak to the prospects that you wish to sell to? Are you focused more on telling your story or focused more on speaking to the prospects that you want to engage? So your content should be current. If it's from 6 years ago when you put the website up, then obviously it's out of date. It's probably somewhat accurate, but no longer effective, and certainly won't be optimized for current search functionality. Once your content is updated, your website hopefully already has an active, vibrant blog. We look for blogs on insurance agency websites, and we hope to see 1 or 2 posts to that blog every week. Those blogs could fit one of 2 categories. They could be industry specific, meaning if you sell to transportation accounts, you can write about new regulations impacting trucking companies. Or if you sell personal lines, you could offer advice to homeowners on how to protect their homes from severe weather conditions. Or secondly, they could be interesting general business topics. I'm sure all of you are selling to some cross-section of business owners, both commercial lines and possibly their personal lines. We find that interesting business topics provide a great way to connect with a wide array of people. So on this active current blog that you're posting to regularly, make sure each post has an image, has a call to action, which takes people to a form or some type of information gathering, lead generating area on your website, and make sure that these blogs feature your search keywords as well. So your content's updated, your blog is being posted to. The next thing we check is social media. Not only do we want your profiles on, at a minimum, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube to be current and attractive and match the branding on your website, we want to see you posting to those regularly. For larger agencies, hopefully you're posting daily or at least every business day. Smaller agencies with fewer resources, hopefully you're posting still once or twice per week. You can then leverage these social media profiles that are vibrant and active and interesting for social media feeds on your website, which make the site appear dynamic and, as we're talking about, current. You also want sharing icons so people can share your outstanding content to their or to your social profiles, and icons on your website. You can see the image I showed of our site. We have the big 5 that I mentioned across the top in the corner there. Next, let's talk briefly about video. I'd say in the past 2 to 3 years, we crossed over a line where all current websites need to have some type of video. It's not really an option anymore. If you don't have any video on your website, people are going to notice that it's outdated, not current. You can use video, leverage video in many different ways. That screen cap of our homepage actually has a video right in the center, the new marketing or lead gen programs. That's an option. You can also leverage video as an accent on your homepage, sharing your value proposition, your specialties, or better yet, videos on each of your internal pages that talk about your areas of specialization, risk management, benefits, high net worth, whatever they may be. And lastly, we hope that your site is well populated with calls to action and forms to gather information from interested prospects. So if you have all of those things, we'll know that your site, at least visually on the front end, is relatively current. Now on the back end, we also want to make sure that your site is leveraging current and up-to-date website code. If your code is outdated, your site could maybe be non-functional or have functional limitations, but more importantly, it could have security vulnerabilities. And this is a big issue, especially if you have any type of client data on your website. To prevent this, you not only want to have up-to-date code, but you need to be consistently updating WordPress, any plugins on your site, or any other platforms you might be leveraging, your theme, and making sure that all security patches and enhancements are being quickly applied to your site. So with that, Alan, I'll hand it off to you to take a deeper dive into current website security.
Thank you. And you're all familiar with the security issues we've seen. 175 million personal records exposed from hacking, dramatic increase in cybersecurity breaches, ransomware, phishing attacks, which is big, phishing with a PH, where people are sending erroneous emails, false emails, trying to get people to click on links and fill out information. That's going to be coming up later as just something that you can help your employees avoid. In 2017, big names, huge names were hacked and breached, and that includes Equifax, Hitachi, HBO. Equifax to me was the most egregious. I personally paid Equifax to monitor my credit, and essentially every person who has a credit history, their information was breached with Equifax, and we didn't learn about that right away. I consider that to be one of the most challenging situations from an organization who's supposed to be minding the data, who basically was out to lunch. And that's their job. So with that, let's talk about what you can do on a smaller and more manageable scale, so that you're not breached, you're not hacked, you're not subject to ransomware, and you don't have wasted time spent on removing a malware virus, for example. So the first start is SSL. Now, hopefully everyone on the line today has their site is already SSL, secure socket link. I could describe this in a simple way. If you remember the days of a landline telephone, there'd be a person in your town. You'd be on your phone in your town. You'd be calling somebody a state away, and anyone who took two wires and plugged into the line in between could listen to your conversation. Very easy to do. Well, now let's think about it from the standpoint of an internet line, because we all have physical lines, going from our place of business or our home. And there's my computer. I'm here in Massachusetts. I'm on my computer. You're in Ohio on your computer, and there's a line, of course, series of lines and servers in between. Anyone who can connect in between those two lines could theoretically capture all of our information. So if I was sending you a lead form, if I was sending you a form saying here's all my health information for my benefits policy, if I was sending here's all my information for my new trucking policy, and so on, anyone can basically steal that information because it's going through unencrypted. SSL changes that so that the information, once it leaves my computer, can be only unencrypted theoretically through your computer, making it much harder for somebody to steal that information. So the browsers are essentially mandating now that all sites are SSL, and by some estimates, 80% of all sites already are SSL over the last 3 years. But surely, if your site is not SSL, take care of that right now, and you'll know that because at the top it'll be HTTPS, not HTTP. And that's a big one. So let's look at a couple of images here. On my screen, you could see a round eye. And if that doesn't say secure, or if it's not green, depending on the browser, it might have a lock on it, a green lock. If that means your site is not SSL, that's the early warning that was happening with most of the browsers. Chrome, in their July release of this year, release 68, is expected to say not secure. So it's moving up the bar, and instead of just having an eye, it's going to actually say not secure, and then the next level will be blocking forms and content. So literally, somebody could go to your site, want to procure insurance from you, want to submit a claim to you, and they'll receive a warning that says the site is not secure, and it will make it very difficult for them to get through. It may be even impossible to submit the form. So that's an easy one. If you're not there, do it. SSL certificates range from free to $79 or so on most hosting providers. It's not an onerous process to make you SSL. Best time to do it is, late on a Friday, for example, to allow propagation time so that you could minimize any downtime. There'll be a little bit of downtime, and get your insurance agency site SSL. Now, let's step back and talk a little bit about generally having security in your agency. Digital security, web security. So the first thing that an agency should do is, with all employees, there should be a training session. It could be web training, it could be on-site training, it could be at the beginning of a company meeting. It doesn't have to be long, but it does have to be poignant, and it does have to be specific, and it should be accompanied with written documents. And some of those may seem obvious to you, like don't click on an attachment. If you're not sure, here's the type of phishing emails that will catch you. Just because it says it's from PayPal, don't believe it. Make sure. And there's a lot of people trying to use the phishing emails to attack your employees. You're only as secure as your least trained employee. Think about that. You have all these links for security, and they're really strong. And perhaps you've done everything you can for server security, for hardening of your website, for malware protection, but it's your weakest link that will kill you. That's the least trained person on your team, and perhaps that's a college intern who's working temporarily. So all employees get trained, all new employees get trained, and have it in writing. Prevent employees from downloading information. So for example, you could do a lockdown desktop, or make it very difficult for them to download. Many, especially the larger agencies, do that. Review your server protocols with your technical team. Review your general protocols with your traditional team. And avoid them downloading ancillary browser plugins, enhancements. There's a zillion tools that you can use for extensions for your browsers. Either don't let them do it, or train them to be very careful doing that, because that's a great way for them. One of the famous things is a famous person had a keystroke saver. There was malware that was on his website. Everything that they typed was being recorded. Key employee for a large organization. So beware of that. Limit direct access to your servers. Make sure your admin, it's just your admins. Make sure they're the only ones who can access it, that you have different levels. If somebody needs to be able to update a WordPress site, they certainly don't need to be an administrator on your server. Just make sure those basic security protocols are in place. Make sure that your software is regularly updated, and use security scans to update your virus protection tools automatically. Don't wait, don't delay. Make sure you have no old browser versions, IE8 or IE7. Somebody's using an old IE, it's a huge security protocol breach. And one of the most famous ones, and a simple one, and this gets back to the training, make sure your employees don't share their passwords. It's really common. We've all done it. It's a real easy. Make sure that their computer shuts down, and when it comes up, they have to have a password to access that computer. Very, very simple yet important cautionary tale. So that was general. Now let's talk about your website specifically. So let's start with being cautious when creating login credentials. Often people don't use the privileges that are open to them. So for example, many people use WordPress sites today. There's also, other sites including Joomla, but they all operate in a relatively similar manner. So if John Scranton, if he's an administrator, I don't have to be if I'm just updating blogs. Or perhaps I only need to view a blog. Use those privileges and make sure that you're not giving administrative access to everyone on your website. That's a big one. Update security patches. Frequently, we go into new clients' websites who are looking to update their website, or they want us to build a new website, and we see they haven't updated. They're 9 releases behind. They have 12 plugins to update. Make sure those are updated. That's a big area where you can have a hack or a breach from that. And use malware protection. A lot of people say, either they don't know or they don't want to take the time. There's a million different solutions available, everything from those offered by your hosting provider to plugins for your websites, but you absolutely must make sure that you have malware protection and that it is continuously scanning and alerting you in the event that it thinks you have a malware infusion. And limit your password attempts. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, but limit password attempts. If you have unlimited password attempts, it allows any bot, any robot to just keep trying to plug in a password to guess your passwords. So there's a lot of options to limit those and to time them out further and further. After the first one, they can do it immediately. The second one, 5 minutes. The third one, 10 minutes. The fifth one, an hour. The sixth one, 2 hours, and so on. Also, do you have access to and are you collecting your activity logs? So one of the, if you have a malware infusion, for example, which is one of the most common, and you're trying to figure out, well, when did it happen? How did it happen? What files did it happen to? Your logs will help you with that. So 1, do you know where they are? 2, do you have access? And 3, are you keeping those? Are you backing those up? How often are you backing up? A great segue. In general, what is your backup solution? So for example, one of the best ways you can back up is every day, every week, every month. So that if you happen to have a hack or a breach or a malware infusion on Wednesday the 15th, and you don't discover it until the 29th, you don't have to worry that, oh, my daily backups are exhausted. You can go to a week backup or 2 weeks before, or worst case, a month before. But some people just back up each day and they write over their backup. Absolutely not a viable plan, or even doing that weekly isn't a viable plan. And getting back to the training for a second, one of the easiest ways for a site to be hacked, your insurance website to get hacked, is by users having simplistic passwords. Password 1, my new password, or their name, John Smith. So both their usernames and their passwords should be complicated. Whatever you do, if the name of the site administrator is John Smith, don't have that as the admin name, John Smith, and then a simple password. Today, 10 characters, random, not sequential, and special characters are your mantra. So that's your website security. So think about that. That's 1, your agency. What are you doing to educate and to make sure you have good best practices for security? 2, what are you doing to secure your website? And now 3, how can you avoid malware and viruses? Those are the big ones. The limited failed login attempts, very crucial. We mentioned that before. You should have that in place literally. If there's anything you leave with, do that tomorrow. Do that today. You can foil brute force attacks. That's when there's one or more bots trying to guess your passwords with these automated programs, and you can limit them because the password limiter will actually identify the IP that's trying to attack it and force that IP to have progressively longer login timeouts. It's straightforward, it's effective, it won't affect all your users. Think about it and do that right away. Utilize two-factor authentication. The simplest way of saying that is if you use your credit card and there's a PIN, that's two-factor authentication. So where you can't, what some websites do is you'll see a bank, they'll ask you to put in your username on one screen and a login password on another screen. So try to have multiple steps when possible. Keep aware of phishing scams. That gets back to your education. The easiest way to get malware infection is for that college intern to click on an attachment. As I said, make sure your usernames don't match the names on your website. We see that all the time, by the way. Utilize desktop firewalls as well as server firewalls to prevent scanning of unauthorized individuals. And by the way, there's things that you can do to protect your website from allowing people to scan files on your website. So there's also things that can be done purely on your website and server that will prevent people trying to identify vulnerabilities from even seeing those files. Backup, as we said, daily, weekly, monthly. And also backup, don't just be backing up to the server, you probably know this, but backup to the cloud. For example, it could be as simple as Google Drive, and it can certainly be more sophisticated than that. So when you think about all of those things, we've been talking 20 minutes now on security. If you did all of those things, you would not be completely invulnerable to an attack, but it would make it much, much harder for you to have a malware infusion or a virus or to get hacked. If you want more information, here's some options for you if you need help updating your agency website, if you want assistance with other types of marketing initiatives, if you're looking for lead generation, which many of our clients ask about, contact John Scranton. His number's right below, John S. at Startup Selling. With that, we thank you all so much for coming today. It was a big crowd. Obviously, security is a big issue. Look forward to additional startup selling, insurance agency, marketing, and website webinars in the upcoming months. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us.